Alright guys, we have two MSI QD-OLED monitors. You can see both of these in front of me. So one is the 32-inch 4K and one is the 34-inch ultra-wide non-4K. So these both are QD-OLED monitors. So QD-OLED is the third generation of OLED technology, and this is the latest and greatest that OLED technology has to offer. So how OLED screens work? So first of all, when you compare to IPS screens and TN panels and LEDs, OLED is something totally different. OLED is very much more advanced. So in OLED displays, every single pixel is an individual LED and every LED works individually. That's why in OLEDs you get the pure black experience, and that's where you get the nice HDR experience with those highlights that pop out. Now the difference between OLED and QD-OLED is actually, it's pretty significant, and it makes a huge difference in the quality of the colors that you're seeing. So in OLED displays, every pixel, every light emitting diode by default emits a white light, and then it goes through three filters, red, green and blue, to give you the desired color. Now because it goes through those three filters, the quality of the color is kind of diminished. The quality of the brightness is also diminished because it's not the direct color that you're seeing. Whereas in QD OLED monitors, QD stands for quantum dots. So you have the LED, which by default emits a blue color light. Now, what are these quantum dots? They are semiconductor nanocrystals. It's some really advanced technology that is really expensive to produce. What these nanocrystals do, instead of going through those three layers like in OLED monitors, these nanocrystals get excited as per the color that you want. So if you want red color, it'll get excited in a certain way with a certain amount of electric current. If you want a different color, then there's a different power of electric current that's needed to give you that desired color. In OLED, you're going through three different filters, whereas in QD OLED, you're going through lesser filters. So the colors are more richer, have more volume, and is more crisp. And also the brightness that is achieved in QD OLEDs because of the lesser number of filters is much higher. So the highlights look better. The HDR, the high dynamic range, looks better. So yes, just like OLED displays, QD OLEDs also suffer from screen burn-in. Although I've been using both of these monitors since around 6 months, I have not experienced any issue as such. And these days, most manufacturers, including MSI, are giving you features to kind of mitigate the risk of burn-in. Talking about MSI, the numbering of the models can get confusing. I've seen a lot of people make blunders because of the naming of the models. So I'll just explain to you and make it more clear to you. This is the 34-inch 34 by 40 into 1440 QD OLED monitor. This is the 32-inch 4K QD OLED monitor. Now MSI has many models with the same panel and many models with the same panel. With the naming, you can understand what features you're getting in which model. The panel is the same. The display technology is the same. This is the MAG 321UP. This is the MPG 341CQPX. Now this has an X. So here, there's also the UPX version, and in this one, there's also the non-X version. The monitors with X in the model number have a 240 Hz display, just like this. You can see there's an X over here, so it has a 240 Hz display. This same monitor with the same model number without the X is also available in a 175 Hz display. Here, there's no X, so this is 165 Hz. In the X version, you get the 240 Hz display. Now, what about this MAG and MPG? And there's also the MEG series. So this is the MAG and this is the MPG, right? The MAG version is kind of, say, the basic series. I mean, it's not really basic because they're all QD OLED monitors. In the MAG version, you don't get those features that you get in the MPG version, which is a KVM switch, which is a 98 watt PD charging, gaming intelligence. In the MEG, you get some other extra features, like you'll get the sensor to detect the brightness. You'll also get an RGB strip, and you'll also get a USB 3.2 hub with two USB-A ports and one USB-C port. So I hope this naming is clear, and I hope you don't end up making that mistake. By the end of the video, I'll tell you which monitor is right for you so that you don't end up spending extra for, say, features that you don't need. Okay, so here are both beautiful QD OLED displays with support for HDR, really accurate colors, 0.03 milliseconds latency. Now this is the 34-inch MPG monitor with the X, and this is the 32-inch MAG monitor without the X. So this is 165 Hz, this is 240 Hz. Now because this is the MPG, this has certain features. First of all, it's the KVM switch. Now notice I've connected my MacBook to this monitor using a USB-C. My keyboard and my mouse is connected to the monitor. It's not connected to the laptop. Now you can see my keyboard and mouse are working. They're not even connected to the laptop. They're connected to the monitor. That means if I'm using multiple devices, I don't need to keep switching my inputs. I can just connect them to the monitor. Say if I hook this up to a desktop, I don't need to connect my keyboard and mouse to a desktop. I can just connect this to this monitor. It becomes kind of convenient. This one does not have a KVM switch, but the beautiful thing is that these days a lot of keyboard and mouse manufacturers are offering keyboard and mice where you can run different profiles. So you don't actually need KVM switch if you use those keyboard and mice. I realized this after using this monitor. I'm like, hey, I don't really need a KVM switch, because if you use, say, the latest Logitech keyboard and mice, like this one, there's a button to shift the profiles. You can just shift the profile and use them with whichever machine you want. So a KVM switch is actually good if in your workflow you're using a lot of devices always. You always have a laptop, you have a desktop, then you have a tablet, then actually a KVM switch is good. But otherwise, if you're just one-off using another device, you don't need the KVM switch. In both of them, you get USB-C display. I'm using USB-C directly on the MacBook, and the MacBook doesn't have a display port. It doesn't have an HDMI. So this is purely USB-C. Whereas this here, you can see I'm connected to this using an HDMI cable. Now this one, because it's the MPG version, it supports 98 watt power delivery. The camera won't pick it up, but it's 100% battery over here. And I put this, I think, just half an hour back. It was some 70% battery. So this thing will charge your laptop. Your laptop will work, and it will stay on the same level of battery. Sometimes the battery life might even go down depending on what you're doing with the laptop, but it does not have power delivery charging like the MPG. You have to decide this for yourself. I can obviously, if I'm using, say, my MacBook with this, I can just separately use the charger of this laptop. I don't really need 98 watt power delivery, and actually for light workflow, my laptop battery won't even drain. This is kind of a luxury and kind of a convenient luxury to have in the MPG, but do you really need it? That's for you to decide. The third feature that the MPG series has that the MAG series does not have is a gaming intelligence feature, where the MPG connects to your machine via USB, so you can use the gaming intelligence app. Now the thing is, yes, that gaming intelligence app is good. You can use it for firmware updates, you can use it to change certain settings of your monitor, but you can actually use the menu to change those same settings. You don't really need that app. And for firmware updates, I actually updated the firmware of this using the DisplayPort cable, which is awesome. I mean, that was just something new that I saw for the first time. And if Sahil sees something new, if Sahil witnesses something new that he does not expect, Sahil loves that. Gaming intelligence is just, it's nice to have, but not really a must to have. The other thing, gaming intelligence, the app, it's not really that responsive. When you give it an input, there's a slight delay in the response. Whereas if you use the OSD menu, the response is immediate. So again, for you to decide what you want. This is 240 Hz, this is 165 Hz. Both amazing refresh rates, great. I typically use my monitors for both, for video editing, for gaming, for productivity, office work, Excel sheets, typing, just about everything. For gaming specifically, between 165 Hz and 240 Hz, I don't really see a difference. I know people say that yes, there is a difference, but honestly, I could not perceive that difference. Alright guys, one of my lights has gone out, so yeah, there's one less light. In a QD-OLED with a 120 Hz plus display, the experience is just amazing. You know what? A lot of people ask me, like, should I buy this expensive graphic card? Should I buy a 5080? Should I buy a 5090? Should I buy a 4080? And I would just ask them that, what display are you using? And they'll be like, I'm using an IPS display. I'm like, spend that money on an OLED display instead of spending it on a graphic card, because the visual upgrade versus, say, if you're using a mid-range card and you use an OLED display, the visual difference upgrade is mind-blowing. I mean, just look at the HDR experience. OLED with an HDR is just brilliant. The colors pop out, the highlights pop out. If you can see the blacks, it's beautiful. It's deep blacks, just really, really clear. Now, this is a 32-inch 4K display. This is typically a 27-inch display, which is just widened a little with a 1440p resolution. So the PPI, the pixels per inches of this, is much higher than this, and that difference is very, very visible. And if you have an OLED display, try watching this review in an OLED display, because you'll get to know the full quality on an OLED display. You can watch it on an iPhone, like an iPhone Pro or a Samsung Galaxy or a Google Pixel. They have OLED displays. So then you'll get the full vibe of what OLED means. I mean, OLED upgrade is just brilliant. So, because it's an OLED, there is a risk of burn-in. Now, I've been using both of these monitors for around 6 months. I haven't experienced any burn-in as such, but both of these monitors offer you OLED Care, which basically has features to kind of prevent the burn-in. So, burn-in means when an OLED display displays the same light for an extended amount of time, the pixels tend to burn out, and that causes burn-in, and that causes a loss in image quality. So they detect if certain pixel is showing the same light for a long amount of time, the monitor will detect that and it will reduce the brightness of that. And then it also has features like pixel refresh. It will keep suggesting you when to refresh your pixels and just things like that. So that's a really good addition to increase the longevity of your OLED display. One thing I didn't mention about the 341 CQPX is this is an 1800R curved display. Yeah, you can see the curve there. It's not really an aggressive curve, and I'm actually a huge fan of this. So you know what? First I was using this monitor, then I went to this monitor, and after that when I switched back to this, I was actually missing the ultra wideness and the curved thing. And actually, I've used curved monitors that go like as high as 900R, which is very, very aggressive, which was kind of bothersome to me. But 1800R curve is actually like, I mean, sometimes I don't even think it's a curved, but it doesn't really hinder my experience. It's actually great. Now, both of these monitors, if you just look at the thickness, these monitors are extremely, extremely thin. They are even thinner than a centimeter, which gives it a very luxury kind of a vibe. Let's talk about the stands. So if you see the stand of the 341 CQPX, this is a full metal stand. It's a very minimal stand. Whereas in the 321 UP, this is a plastic stand and it's not as minimal as that one. I actually prefer this stand more. It looks much more sexier on your desk. This is a more high-end stand. And in the MPG series, they'll give you a high-end stand like this, whereas in the MAG series, they'll give you kind of a basic stand like that. If your game supports HDR, if your game supports those true blacks, it's just great. I play Elden Ring, I play The Witcher, I play Cyberpunk, Dota 2. I mean, it's just great. After this, going back to an IPS display doesn't really cut it for me. Even if the IPS display supports HDR on an OLED monitor looks so much more better and purer than in an IPS display. Now, because both of these are QD-OLED monitors, they have much better viewing angles, and actually, whatever angle you view it from, there is no degradation in the color quality, in the brightness. There is no degradation absolutely at all, which is so prevalent in IPS displays and TN panels. In QD-OLED monitors, whatever viewing angle you're at, you're still getting the best experience. Both of these monitors have a joystick behind and two buttons surrounding those joysticks. It's kind of okay to use. I mean, it's still not the best. I would have preferred, like in a lot of competitor brands, they have a separate control for controlling the settings. I would have preferred that. So now, should you go for the 240 Hz or the 165 Hz? I think MSI even offers a 360 and a 480 Hz models. So if you're a competitive gamer, there's nothing that needs to be said over here. Just go for the highest refresh rate monitor you can find. But if you're a normal gamer, if you're just a casual content consumer, or even if you're a serious gamer like me, do you really need a 240 Hz? Well, I play Dota 2. I've tried Dota 2 in both the 240 Hz and the 165 Hz. Honestly, I didn't feel any difference. A lot of people, they do claim that there is a difference. I don't personally feel any difference. Yes, definitely, obviously, there's a difference between 60 Hz and 120 Hz. But I didn't notice a difference between 165 and 240 Hz. And now, say if this 4K display was a 240 Hz display. Now, for games like Wukong, Cyberpunk, where the requirements are really high, I mean, you need a really, really beefy PC, probably like 250 90s if you want to like run it with maximum ray tracing and with no DLSS, native 4K resolution. You can't even drive a game to 240 Hz. So you know what? 240 Hz is not really required if you're not into competitive gaming. 165 Hz in this one or the 175 Hz in this one is just enough. Since I have two different sizes here, which size is perfect for you? If you're into productivity, if you do a lot of video editing, and if you're using a lot of windows together, nothing beats an ultra wide. I just love working on this. I mean, let me just show it to you. You see here how two windows are open together. I can just work. I mean, I can actually open three windows if I really want to do it. And just look at the scaling with the MacBook Pro. It is scaling perfectly. I can literally open another window over here. Here. You can just, there's a lot of real estate to work around with over here. Yes, this is also good, but the ultra wideness will give you a more edge in terms of productivity, and especially for workflows like video editing, because then you have a wider timeline that you can see. So for productivity, definitely the ultra wide is good. But if you're into content consumption and gaming, you actually go for this, because a lot of games don't support ultra wide. I mean, the games that I play, Cyberpunk doesn't support ultra wide, Elden Ring doesn't support ultra wide, Dota 2 supports ultra wide. A lot of movies, a lot of like Netflix content, YouTube content, they don't support ultra wide. They support this aspect ratio. A lot of people say that OLED displays are not good for productivity tasks where there's a lot of text. That might have been true before, but here, honestly, I don't notice any things like text fringing, which a lot of people claim that OLED displays have. For me, the text displayed here is perfect. It's as good as a TN or an IPS display. I think maybe slightly like 5% they might be better. It's just so insignificant, and the upgrade you're getting in terms of other things is just so high that it just doesn't bother me. I can work with text just fine. Then there's other things like if you use Windows, you can use that Windows dark mode. It just looks great. And Windows with HDR, with auto HDR, it used to be really bad, but I think Microsoft has made a lot of improvements. So auto HDR in Windows now is actually works really great. On a Mac, obviously, the implementation of HDR is by default, it's just amazing. You don't even need to like work around with the settings much. So overall, I think MSI is offering a great range of QD OLED monitors, a great package, and I think there's one of the best priced OLED monitors. If you compare with Asus, if you compare with LG Ultra Gear, you compare with Samsung, MSI actually has the best priced monitors. And you know what? They're actually giving you everything that all the competitors are giving at a much better price. They're also running a couple of promotions on Amazon, so check that out. And now the question is, which monitor is right for you? You can actually save a lot by buying the MAG non-X version. I would recommend that. That would be a smart buy. But you know what? Who am I to tell you? If money is not an issue, go for the MPG version, go for the MEG version. Also keep in mind, if you want to upgrade your visual experience, rather than upgrading your specs, just try this. Just upgrade to an OLED monitor. Upgrading to an OLED monitor is the ultimate generational experience. Everything is upgraded. The quality of the colors, the response time of OLED displays compared to IPS displays and all is just much better. The viewing angles are much better. HDR is the best thing. I just love HDR, and when content supports HDR, when games support HDR, movies support HDR, it is just such an amazing, mind-blowing experience consuming that content. So that's it from my side. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. And if you want me to keep making these videos, if you have any product in mind, do let me know. And please subscribe to the channel. That is what encourages me to do more videos like this. Sahil out.